Welcome back to another beautiful day in the land of music. My name is Douglas, and in today's video, I'm going to be walking you through some installation tips and setup tips for Komplete 13. So I have Komplete 13 Ultimate here. There are a few different variations. There's Komplete 13 Select, the normal Komplete 13, Komplete 13 Ultimate, and then the Collector's Edition, which is on top of the Ultimate. So I've got the Ultimate here. I decided it was time to upgrade because I have Komplete 11 Select prior to this. Use that all the time in any sort of music production I do, but I figured it's time to upgrade my virtual instrument and decided to jump for Komplete 13 Ultimate. From playing around with it just a little bit over the last few days, I am blown away by the number of sounds and different virtual instruments. There's over 115 different virtual instruments and effects, and then there's over 30 different sound expansion packs for the various virtual instruments. So thousands and thousands of sounds. Super excited to get into it. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the future videos. There's going to be a lot on this whole series where I go in depth on what's included for sounds and effects and everything in Komplete 13 Ultimate, but also diving into each one of the different virtual instruments, exploring those together with you. Really excited to do that. But for today's video, I'm going to break this up into a couple of different things. Number one, I want to talk about what comes in the box, what you can get for different delivery options for Komplete 13, and then we'll jump over to the computer. And I've got to say, please excuse the kind of temporary setup behind me. I'm working on setting up my studio down here, and this is just kind of a temporary makeshift setup so I can do some music production before I actually do the official studio desk build and everything like that. So be on the lookout for those videos. They're coming soon. Really excited about that. But the second part of this video is going to be jumping over to the computer and just walking you through a couple of tips around the installation and setup and use of Komplete 13. So I ran into a couple of things that I want to share with you, specifically around the location of the storage and then some of the delivery options and how they translate when you install and set them up. So inside the box, what comes with Komplete 13, there's a couple of different ways you can get this delivered. So I got the boxed set, which came with this little external hard drive, and it came with this USB, or it has an adapter to turn this into USB-C. So you can connect this hard drive and think of this as a glorified CD or thumb drive that you use during the installation process. I was under the misconception when I bought this that this would be the content store. So I'd install the plugins and then just plug this into my computer, and then it would just access the sounds on here. What this is the installation files. So instead of having to download them all from Native Instruments, you can get them on a hard drive like this in a boxed set, so you don't have to download 500 gigabytes worth of content. So it saves some time there for sure, but you still need another 500 gigabytes of free space to put the content that you're installing from this hard drive. So just something to keep in mind, it's not the content store, it's the installation files that then get installed to somewhere else. So I used an external hard drive, and I'll show you how I set those directory paths up here in a few minutes. The other way you can get this is via download. So you can purchase it, you get the license, you go into Native Access, which I'll show you here in a minute. And then you're gonna have to download all of the content in the virtual instruments, plugins, all of that, and then install them. So I'll show you both of those kind of tips and tricks here on the computer, but those are the two delivery methods, the boxed or the download. I opted for the box so I didn't have to spend all the time of downloading 500 gigabytes worth of content. They're both the same price, so just pick whichever one works the best for you. If you do go with the download option, you're going to want to make sure you have a really fast internet connection or a lot of time to be able to download the content for that. So the last thing, if you buy the boxed set version, you get the hard drive, the cable, the adapter to change it from standard USB to USB-C, and then you get this little card that has the license key on it, and that's what you put into Native Access. I'll talk you through that here in a minute, but otherwise nothing else comes special with the boxed set. It's really just the content and the license code. So let's jump over to the computer and take a look at a couple of things over here. So over here on the computer, I've got Native Access pulled up. And if you're not familiar with Native Instruments plugins and virtual instruments, you use Native Access to manage the licenses, the serial numbers for those products, to download them, to download updates to them, and kind of manage your Native Instrument plugins and virtual instruments. So if you haven't bought any Native Instruments plugins yet, you're gonna have to go and download Native Access. And if you got the boxed version, when you plug the hard drive into your computer, it's gonna open up a folder, and in there's a README document that you can open up, and it gives you some instructions. And then you can go to Native Instruments websites. There's a URL on the little license card you get, and you navigate to that website and it walks you through the installation process as well. But the first step is going to be creating an account with Native Instruments and then downloading Native Access. That's what you're going to use to manage, download, and install the products. Once you have Native Access, you're going to go to add a serial number. And this is going to work a little differently if you bought the download version or the box version. So if you got the download version, you're going to get a serial number. You're going to click add serial number, and you're going to put that in here and then click the add serial number. That's going to pull in all of the products associated to that serial number. So in the case of Komplete 13 Ultimate, it pulled in over 100 different products that it had to install. And then there were about 24 of them that didn't have the latest version on the hard drive. And so it had to go out and it had to update those 24 or so plugins and then install them. So one thing to keep in mind there, and I'll show you the download location here in a minute, but you are going to need some space on top of the content space for Native Instruments to download those updates prior to installing. It does delete the downloaded update files once it installs them, but you're going to need probably 50 to 100 gigabytes of free space to download those because it does a bunch at a time. If you bought the boxed set, when you plug the hard drive in and you open up Native Access, it's automatically going to open up this add serial, and you'll put the serial number in that came on the license card with the boxed set. That's going to do the same thing. It's going to bring in the products that need to be installed. So over here on the left, we have 3 different options: not installed, available updates, and installed products. If I go to available updates, all my products are up to date. And if I go to my installed products, you see here are all of the virtual instruments, plugins, effects, all of that associated to the licenses that I have through Native Instruments. And then if you're adding a new serial number, you're bringing this in for the first time. When you add that serial, it's going to populate a whole bunch of products here in the not installed section. And you can either install those one by one, it shows how much space is required, or you can install them all with a button. And before you do that, let's go up here and check out the preferences, because this is where we set the different file locations for the various content that's getting installed. So first is the download location, and this is where Native Access is going to download any updates that it needs to make to the plugins that you're installing, and it's going to download those to this directory. Make sure you've got 50 to 100 gigabytes free because it downloads a whole bunch at a time, so it's going to need that space. It does delete those after it's done installing, but you're going to need that temporary space up front. The application location is where Native Access installs the standalone plugin versions of the virtual instruments. So for example, we have these desktop icons here for Massive, Battery 4, Guitar Rig 6. All of these are standalone plugins, Contact, that we can open up without a DAW and we can play the virtual instruments. For example, Massive, I open that up here and you see I've got Massive, just the plugin itself, no DAW connected, and I've got my Oxygen Pro Mini plugged in here. So I'm able to play this virtual instrument without even needing to open my DAW up. I'm going to close that. So that is the application location. And then we have the content location. So the content location is the big one. This is where it stores all the content behind the plugins. You're going to need about 500 gigabytes free in this location for Komplete 13 Ultimate. Less for the Select and the normal standard version, and then even more for the Collector's Edition. Check out the specs for each of those variations to see how much space you actually need. But this content location you can see here, I have this on an external hard drive. So I've got that external hard drive plugged into my computer, and I've put the content in that location so it's not tying up space on my actual computer's hard drive. Then the last two are our VST or virtual instrument locations. These are the plugins that you open up when you're in your DAW. So I'll pull up Pro Tools here in a minute and I'll show you a couple of things there, but this is the 32 and the 64-bit locations. So those should be wherever your DAW is pointed to pull those plugins and virtual instruments in. Set those up there. And those are the different locations. So remember, download, you're going to need 50 to 100 gigabytes if you're installing Komplete 13 Ultimate. And then the content location, you're gonna need a big chunk. That's the big one. And in my case, I've installed this on an external hard drive. So the plugins, the applications are all on my local computer, but the content itself is installed to my external hard drive. So this is how you can do it if you don't have 500 gigabytes free on your computer. You can always send that to an external hard drive or a thumb drive to be able to put that content on there, not tying up space on your computer. So let's jump over now to Pro Tools. I'm gonna open that up. All right, so now that we've got Pro Tools open, you can see here I have a couple of tracks. So number one, in order to play any of your virtual instruments, you're gonna need to create an instrument track. So we go to New Track, Stereo, Instrument Track, and Create. And then what we can do is we can click in one of these empty insert slots, go to Multi-Channel Plugin, Instrument, and you can see we have the Contact, we have Massive, Massive X, Reactor 6, and we can open any one of these up, and I actually have Contact inputted into my track 1 here. And if we click on that, or you add it, it's gonna open up with the plugin. So one thing to note is most of the virtual instruments sit inside Native Instruments Contact plugin. So Contact is, think of it as a container that you can open up one or more virtual instruments from your Native Instruments library, and you can assign them to different or the same MIDI channels, and we can do some manipulations there within Contact. So let's just open one up here. I was really impressed with the Studio Drummer, so let's open that up. And to open it up inside Contact, we can click on this instruments header on any one of these, and it drops down with the different versions of this virtual instrument that we can open up. So I'm gonna double click on Session Kit Full, and that's gonna load it up here in the right-hand side. You'll notice this progress bar right here, and you'll notice the memory value is increasing. So what it's doing right now is it's caching the content from my external hard drive into memory on my computer. So I can play this without any sort of latency because it's loading it into the memory rather than playing it directly off the external hard drive. Once this is cached into memory, that progress bar goes away, and then we're free to play this. Make sure your track is armed because that's how Pro Tools knows that it will enable MIDI messages, and then you can go ahead and play. From a recap perspective, a lot of your virtual instruments are going to be inside Contact. There are a few standalones like we saw here. There are some standalones like Massive, the Battery 4, those types of plugins do have standalone versions. So check those out, explore to your heart's content, and have fun. So I hope this was helpful for you in getting it installed and set up. If you've got any questions, throw them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the luscious videos that I'll be coming out with soon as I dive into these different virtual instruments and plugins. Really excited to explore them and share with you guys what's included with Komplete 13 Ultimate. Thanks for watching, stay inspired, and keep making that music.